So the winner for the best comeback in the MCU goes to the Thor franchise, because this movie is way better than the previous two Thor films. So let's talk about it. So in Thor Ragnarok, Hela, the goddess of death, arrives to take over Asgard. In the process, Thor gets exiled off to a distant planet and has to fight his way back to Asgard to stop Ragnarok, the apocalyptic destruction of Asgard. In the process, we easily get the best of the Thor movies and one of the most fun movies in the MCU. Now, before I give my full thoughts on it, be sure to put your thoughts down below in the comment section. I'd love to hear your take on it because this is a fun movie that I want to talk about. Also know, in a couple days, I'm going to put out my ranking of all 17 movies in the MCU. It's going to be under 10 minutes. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to have to restrict myself. So if that sounds interesting to you, be sure to check that out in just a couple of days. All right, with that said, let's start talking about the good. Right off the bat, as I already stated, this movie is just a ton of fun. Now, it's jam-packed with humor. I mean, just good, funny jokes, whether that's Thor's new personality that has these quips, some payoff from previous things that happened in other movies. Some of that, there's some cameos in here that are just like out of this world, just out of the blue. You're like, wait a minute, is that really that person? And I hope you can see this movie before that gets spoiled for you, because who some of these cameos are. And just beyond the humor of it, which is jam-packed with humor, just the lively, vivid color scheme, the soundtrack, the use of Led Zeppelin, all of it just gives you this sense of fun, this world, this story that you want to be in throughout the whole time. You love being there in this space, enjoying what's going on all around you. And the reason this movie can be so much fun is because this movie has an insane cast of characters played by amazing actors that all bring their A game of fun, charm, mischievousness to the mix. Obviously, you got Chris Hemsworth that finally his comedic chops just get to shine because he's a really funny guy. You get Tom Hiddleston. He's doing the same Loki we've seen before, but in a good movie with so many opportunities for him to go back and forth, do the Loki thing. And by now we've got that rapport down with him and Thor. And so just so many great payoffs in their relationship between the two of them. You get Carl Urban in here. You get Jeff Goldblum in here. Jeff Goldblum's basically playing himself, I imagine, as a space guy. I mean, this is what I just think his life is like, and it fits perfectly into the world that they've created here. And I mean, you just can't even go through all the great characters in here. You get Tessa Thompson coming in as Valkyrie. It's just kind of this new twist and new energy to bring to it. So just all in all, jam-packed with standout solid performances. Speaking of Hela, coming off the last Thor movie, this is just an amazing villain. We're not going to forget her. I don't know if we'll see her again, but just she's memorable, strong, has a backstory you care about, a scheme that makes sense, that ties into things. It all makes sense with a great performance. So one of the stronger MCU villains, which is interesting that the Thor franchise, which up until this point in time has kind of been one of the weaker franchises in the MCU, has delivered Loki and now Hela, some of the best villains that we've got in this universe. And so much of the reason that this movie is so fun and works is just because of the director that just has such a flair and a style. I haven't seen any of his previous stuff, but they let him go for it here. And some of that, just even the stylized direction in a few of the sequences, there's like some flashbacks and seeing in kind of some people's heads at parts of it, and the way it's directed, the way it looks and everything, it's just a very just vivid production that just comes to life in the way he's visualized all of this, whether the humor, the look of it, the imagination in parts of it just works so wonderfully. And he's able to tell a story that can be summarized fairly quickly, but has so many levels to it, kind of goes to a lot of places, takes you on quite the journey that has major consequences for the MCU, for several of the characters here. It's a big deal what happens in this movie, but he's able to tell it very efficiently and in a focused fashion that pulls all the stories together, makes it clear what we're doing, why we're doing it, and when you tie all this together, a clean, efficient story that has emotion, that has stakes, where stuff matters, and then you fill it with a bunch of vivid characters played by great actors, and just tons of fun and all of it. It makes for a really enjoyable movie that I thoroughly enjoyed. And when I start talking about the negatives, as I'm about to do, they come off a little bit more like nitpicks because I had such a fun time watching this movie, but there's a couple problems here. The biggest problem I kind of had with the movie is that in order to set up the plot the way it does and to set up certain jokes to pay it off, they kind of cheat some of the writing. There's points in time where Thor says some things and it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, he would have had knowledge that he doesn't have in the situation. There's things where Loki is clueless about things that set up a great moment, but don't make a lot of sense in light of what they've set up around him and what we learn later on. There's several points in time like that happen. Also, there's a whole lot of coincidence that plays into when certain things happen, to where certain people are at certain times, that in the scheme of the universe and time and all the places people could end up, it seems pretty unlikely that all these pieces would fit together at the times that they happen, right as someone was here and this person just happens to be here to make all the pieces fit together so that this adventure can happen, so that we can have this kind of fun, so that we can discover just the right people to be able to resolve certain things. It's pretty contrived in the way some of these pieces come together. Also, because there's so much green screen, CGI kind of going on, there's some shots that you're looking at it and you're like, okay, he's on a green screen soundstage right now. There's a lot of shots like that kind of pulled me out of it. And a few of them, when you're in the space age worldy stuff, you're like, yeah, I mean, of course, this is green screen. You can't actually build a planet off that's this junk planet with all this. Of course, it's a special effect. But other ones, it was like, this is like, that's a place they could be at. Why does this feel so fake? I don't know if it is CGI and I don't know if it is green screen, but this doesn't look real. There's a few things like that. Finally, this is a movie that has serious stakes, consequences, even death, but the moments when these happen frequently don't have the level of emotional depth they should have. In fact, there's 2 or 3 moments in here where some serious things happen to some characters, and the movie just kind of shrugs it off, moves on to the next scene, the next moment, and never acknowledges really what's just happened and how we should be feeling in light of what just happened. And Thor, likewise, doesn't really have the right emotions in light of what's going on around him because he's got this new jokey personality that does not match the stakes, consequences happening, and that robs the movie of some of the emotional depth that should be going on and the stakes we should be feeling. But all in all, this is a movie that I thoroughly enjoyed. I'm having to weigh a little bit like my sense of fun I had with it versus some of those story issues in regards to the stakes, consequences, some of the visual effects. All in all, I think I gotta go with an 8.8 on this one. Tons and tons and tons of fun. Some story issues in there with the way a few things played out. But if I'm being honest, I think if you go see this movie, you're just going to have a ball. It's a blast. I'm sure it's going to be one of those movies I actually rewatch a ton when it comes to the MCU. It is a fun movie to watch. But what did you think about it? Tell me down below in the comment section. I'd love to hear your take on it. And remember to come back in just a couple of days to check out my MCU ranked video. This one's going to be under 10 minutes. I'm going to work really hard to actually be concise in my thoughts, which is hard for me because I like to ramble a little bit. And if you're new to my channel, please consider clicking that subscribe button. I do movie reviews like the one you're watching right now, TV reviews, ranking videos like the one I keep telling you about. But the key thing is I don't want to just talk about movies. I want to talk about movies with you. So join me in the comment section. Let's have a lively discussion. And thank you so much for watching.